I've been in this now banking, finance, and insurance industry, and the definition of success is instill entrepreneur mindset in the younger generations. I think, and even when I've helped people with jobs, I've consciously looked at this
corporation too.
Firstly, I want to thank Mrs. Dishan and Hemal Mehta and the World Development Corporation.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the esteemed FaceTime with Leaders and Initiative by World Development Corporation. My name is Tanay Ol, and I'm an anchor at World Development Corporation. FaceTime with Leaders is a platform for industry veterans to come together to share their knowledge, ideas, thoughts, and best practices with one another, as well as with upcoming industry leaders. We have one such industry leader on FaceTime with Leaders with us today, Mr. Ramessh Ramakrishnann. We welcome you on the show, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here.
He is a distinguished professional with over 3 decades of extensive experience in the fields of banking, finance, insurance, and technology. He has held senior management roles across various countries, demonstrating exemplary leadership in both corporate operations and social initiatives. His career journey encompasses a diverse range of responsibilities, including IT infrastructure and operations management, application development, testing, supplier management, data governance, cybersecurity, business resilience, and business intelligence. His commitment to social responsibility is evident through his active involvement in CSR activities, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. He has collaborated with various organizations to provide essential support to the needy, including distributing oxygen concentrators and empowering women through initiatives like period poverty eradication. So, sir, could you provide a brief overview of your background and how you entered the BFSI sector?
Thank you, Tanay. It's a pleasure talking to you. And I had a very early start. I started working at the age of 18, and I studied at probably one of the best schools in Chennai. And my passion was always cricket. And probably I was the only few left-handers, natural left-handers to face, because left-handers were a rare breed at least 30 years back.
Yeah.
But again, for obvious reasons, I had to take up work. But I always believed in a philosophy: whatever comes my way, I wanted to take it wholeheartedly and make the best use of it. Uh, I would say it's a gift, God's gift. I don't know, because I always had that mindset. So it didn't matter to me what job I'm doing, but whatever I'm doing, I wanted to give my best. So I was always in that zone, and I was not really swayed by the results. Whether it could go this way or that way. Nothing impacted me even at a very young age. Whatever comes my way, it's fine as long as I believe that I put in my good work. And I would first attribute this to my parents for making sure the right values are instilled, and obviously they are a big impact on your upbringing. And obviously, I've been in this now banking, finance, and insurance industry combined with technology for now more than 30 years. This is now 32nd years. And I'm based in Dubai, and that's my ninth country. So, been in Dubai for 10 years. So, when I look back this journey, obviously, without family, nothing works well. So, I also wanted to take this moment to thank my wife and children because they do play an important role. Anything on the personal side does have an impact on the professional side. How much ever we try to keep that separate, it will not work. So I'm a big believer in that. So having started, I started at 18. I joined LIC, and I still remember it was 91 when the privatization had not happened. The industry had not opened up. So when I joined, I was worked in a very remote place, a rural place near Madurai in south of Tamil Nadu. I, and those days we didn't have mobiles. I still remember the first day I went to the office. They used to do a trunk call. Used to put an entry in the register and talk to people. So I put a call to my dad, and I told him on the first day, "This is great. I'm happy, but I think I should look for more. Probably um, at some point of time, I think I will try and do something better." Obviously, my dad was not pleased because no one would want to hear that because it's a government job and people think you're settled in life. So many perceptions goes around you, right? But again, I would attribute my learning in basics and making sure that I've got the basics right, the understanding right, because I always believe domain expertise is a key. Understanding the processes, the functionalities, the end-to-end perspective. So I thought I learned a lot in LIC. So I can't forget what good it did to me, because people may have different perceptions, but I wanted to be, you can't have a better experience than working for one of the biggest organizations. And after 8 years, I took a call that I need to move on. I was still young because when you start at 18, you're still 26 at that point of time when your peers had just finished out of college and some of them probably looking for jobs or whatever. And I just told my dad, I think I need to take the break now. And that was very interestingly just before privatization. So
Hmm.
it was considered to be a very controversial decision. And many people said probably this guy's got mad. So, and I always believe you got to be crazy. You got to take calculated risks in life, and it's up. It's an individual's choice. If you want to go and explore and ready to take the hit and still go beyond that, it all goes with the mental courage and how much you reassure yourselves. Because I believe in inner strength. Because the more you reassure yourself and the more you back yourself, you've crossed half the bridge. The remaining half is where you look for outside support, acknowledgement, and all those things. I'm a big believer in that. So I took the call, and obviously some of them were not happy, some of them were happy. But I was not a leader that time, but I always believed that you don't need to make everyone happy. If you believe that that decision is right and that's right for you, take the plunge. And I believed in that. So I actually left and joined for a salary which was lesser than LIC, and people confirmed I was a mad guy. So yeah, I was fine with that. And I joined an IT company as an analyst, business analyst, because I brought the domain expertise with me, and it's time for me to learn the technology side. So it was a great curve there because I was coming from a government organization to a private company and as a consultant. So there were a lot of perceptions on the other side. So I that thought teaches you life as well, to be honest. How people look at you, how you have to deal with that. Probably I was blessed to go through all these things at a very young age, because it was good and bad, but I saw more of good in that because I was able to understand things. I was able to slog. I was able to work hard, correct myself, course corrections, listen to people, and then uh, I didn't look back afterwards because I was in Bangalore and then I moved to Mumbai. Mumbai is sort of my second home for me because it's been fairly lucky for me, where most of my international opportunities have closed in Mumbai. So I have a sentiment. Mumbai is always lucky for me. For obvious reasons. So good things have happened where you always tend to believe, especially when you're a positive and optimistic individual, you see the positives around you. That drives you. So I worked for the Aditya Birla Group, and then my first country I went to was Australia. I worked on policy administration systems because, like any in the technology world, if you look at how the architecture is, you have one core admin system which does all the processing and or holds all the data. This is source of truth. And then you have a host of peripherals which keeps talking to the core system and just giving a layman interpretation like the reporting, accounting, HR, sales, distribution, partnerships. See, depending on the domain and the business you operate in, that's how the architecture is generally structured. So the core admin system was where a lot of companies in US, Canada, most of the systems were owned by companies based in US and Canada to a larger extent. So I was working for one of those systems. I got trained and worked in Australia. Then I moved to Japan. It's still one of my favorite countries. I work for Prudential Corporation of Asia. I work for Hartford Life. Um, and basically, my job was in the IT, translating the domain, the processes into a technical interpretation. Because that was actually a very tough part because you need to first understand every country is different, every product offerings are different, and the way the the terminologies are fairly same, or the meaning is the same. Processes don't differ big, but how they operate changes. And that also goes with the local legal considerations, laws, and the governing bodies, because that based on that, some minor modifications will be there. But
Mm.
still, to interpret that into how a process will get implemented in the system was a techno-functional job, which is still a very niche area, which I would say, because you still don't have good people who understand end-to-end processes, functionalities, and translate them into a good technology roadmap, irrespective of any domain. Because I always say this when I go and speak in colleges, universities, students, I tell them, if you're in technology, just don't stick to doing coding or testing. Just don't do just one job. Try and diversify yourselves and always think from an end-to-end perspective. Because if you are working in a particular area, you need to know when you do anything, what kind of impacts, direct or indirect, happens on the other areas or the other functional areas. Because only if you know that, you'll be able to do your job better. Because I find most of them just sticking like a horse, looking at what they have to do, and as long as that gets achieved, they move on. But I always tell youngsters, open up yourself, think, look at end-to-end perspective, where it starts, where it ends, what is your role in the middle or whichever part, and how you influence that decision making, or create an impact, or do something which is meeting the customer's expectations. So it was a great journey, and and after working for 2 decades in insurance, I decided Citibank. So in Singapore, and I was with Citi. So many people ask me, 2 decades in insurance, then you're going and joining a bank. Are you crazy? I didn't expect that question coming after 2 decades, but people who know me closely know me very unconventional, because I don't believe in being stereotyped, and I believe in risk taking. And when I've handled teams, I always tell teams, if you fail, uh, I will be there in the front to take whatever that comes. Because I always believe leadership is all about, we've spent 3 decades, what for? It's not just for you. You got to give it back to the next generation. You have to give it back to the society. You have to create that positive aura and energy around the teams. And you need to carry that with you. And sometimes, even to do good, you may be criticized. Because we will live in that kind of world, but that's okay. That's fine. Again, for me, I love my critics. Anyone who criticizes me is close to my heart, because at least someone has the guts to say what you're doing differently. And I may be wrong, because I always say this: there is never a right way or wrong way to do things. It's only the best way that you can do things at that point of time. Because I keep saying this, because normally what happens is, when you are in a role or a position, you do what is right, and then you move on, and then the next person comes, oh, we could have done this better, we could have done that better. I don't subscribe to that logic, because generally what I do is I put myself in that situation, that shoes, and then I see what could have been the best decision. Was that right? If you do that, you'll be able to understand and appreciate the rationale behind that. And then if there are any improvisations, you will be able to do it in a very practical manner, rather than just getting sighted or getting blinded by perceptions. So I always believe in that, and I always advocate this kind of leadership to my teams, and whatever roles I have to my leadership team, management teams. No one is right or no one is wrong. They've taken decisions at that point of time because the circumstances, the situation, the objectives, everything was different at that point of time. Because even companies do change course, objectives, goals, depending on the external market conditions or internal conditions. We also do course corrections. So you can't simply go by that. So that is one key area in leadership. I advocate this to my team. Be more practical, and I'm a big believer in practical brilliance, because I always believe academic brilliance is needed, no doubt. I'm, but if you don't know how to implement it in line with what your organization wants, what your team wants, what you want to deliver for the organization, if you're not able to correlate between the two, the academic brilliance is a zero. So in 100, academic brilliance is zero, and if you want to make it 100, that 10 is the practical brilliance which comes before and makes it complete. So I always tell people, Always good to do certifications, always good to be academically brilliant, but be practical. Because be more of trying, testing, and don't hold yourself. And that because I've come the hard way in life, so I always believe in looking at things as is, and then looking at a very practical view. And then obviously you try and relate to concepts, frameworks, because this is where the academic part comes in, and you should know how to implement it. I completely subscribe to that.
You have a really wide professional purview. How did you come about handling so many roles and responsibilities?
For me, I've always believed in whatever comes your way, you have to take it.
Hmm.
Uh, and unless you test and try yourself, and especially in the leadership position, if you want to be diversified, first of all, you're not going to be successful in everything you do. And the definition of success is again up to you. And that's what I tell people. There's nothing called success or failure, because if you want to learn something, you want to give a shot, be honest about it. So I've never said to know whatever comes my way, but I've set expectations, because that's the key. Because everyone can do everyone can think they can do everything, but how realistic and practical you are, and you be open to it, and at the same time say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Be more visible and transparent, and then communicate that in a manner what you intend to do, what's your strategy, and how do you want to go about it. As long as you give that clarity, it also helps the wider decision makers and your peers and others to subscribe, and that's why you also get inputs. Because there's a very common saying in leadership: you've got to be an active listener, and you speak less. I generally speak very less because I have a philosophy: every word that comes from my mouth is $1 million worth, because I'm very conscious about it. And so people may even brand you that he's very silent, but silence is good, because the more you observe, for if someone is talking, discussing about something for 10 minutes, you'll come and wrap that within 2 minutes. This time is so precious, and I'm a firm believer in that. So I observe, I listen to people, their thoughts, what is their approach, where they're coming from. So when I say I sort of put a framework in myself and say, okay, this is what it is, this is what everyone says, this is what we should do. So once I get that landing, it takes hardly 2 minutes for me to summarize and tell what I feel. And obviously that comes with the experience, but listening is one key big thing, because sometimes when you deal with wider teams, because when I've been in positions where I've handled so many responsibilities that you don't get to talk to everyone in the team, because you have a team of 150. You think you can talk to all the 150 daily? Practically not possible. And your management team is around, let's say, for example, 10 to 12. That's quite long. It's a big one. And even to talk to your management team will be a challenge. So for me, how you wire yourself, how you structure yourself, how organized you are, and how you prioritize and deprioritize. But at the same time, how you make your teams feel engaged.
Hmm.
And I tend to be also very people oriented person. For me, I'm a big believer. Organizations come and go, people stay with you. With due respect to the organizations, see, I work for a company, the company pays me, I'm doing my job to the best of my ability, I meet the goals. The job is done there. But beyond that, there is a people side to it. Because especially because I was the CIO when pandemic came, overnight there was a decision which was taken, we're going remote. The world went remote within a short space. And look at her, and technology was one thing which we were trying to grapple up with, because no one knew how it will work. And honestly speaking, I still remember when the previous organization I worked, when we decided we'll go remote, there was a question: will it be okay? Will everything will be fine? Will it be okay? Will there be 100% availability of systems? Will there be any slow? There's so many questions. The only thing what I said is, we're giving our heart and soul. We're giving the best. We are getting into an unprecedented scenario which we wouldn't have imagined. How much ever robust business resilience, disaster recovery, all these things you had, pandemic which just broke through, and it has taken us to a different level. So we'll only hope for the best. But we have given our best shot. But we are all into this together. So let's be positive, but we'll be wired to work 24 by 7. to make sure that we are not leaving nothing unturned. And the only thing I called my management and I team and said, look, no one is going to feel bad if something goes wrong. I said this, and if something goes wrong, you have my backing. As a leader, I'm there in front of you. When something is not right, you don't need to pick up the calls. All the calls, let it come to me. Because first, you give that assurance to people, they are more important to you than anything else. And when I did that, obviously it was like we didn't know when we were having a break because everything, the biological system changed. Everything changed, especially because indoors, you don't know when you're having a breakfast, lunch, or dinner because everything happens within the house, and the house became a war room, and we have to deal with so many things. So for me, I'm just giving this example because it doesn't matter what responsibilities you do or what you're holding a diverse portfolio or what team you manage. Mindset is the key. And the willingness to accept. If it goes right, fine. If it doesn't go well, that's also fine. Because many people think as a leader, if you take decisions and if you don't work well, and obviously when you're subjected to criticism, people think it's a very not a good thing. I said it's nothing called good and bad. If at all of that stage comes, it's fine. Everyone will go through this at some point in their lives. So you, as long as you know that you have given your best, you are your judge, and you know if you are backing yourself, the external outside noise is cut off.
Right.
So that's what I tell my people when that mentality gave me the opportunity to accept anything that came my way. I was always okay to take new things, learn new things, and try and implement, set expectations, and the rest is whatever has to happen will happen.
So, given your multicultural exposure and leadership roles, what are some challenges you find in the Indian corporate landscape and what solutions do you propose?
Yeah, having worked in 9 countries, I wouldn't say anything is good or bad because whether it is with India or Japan or Australia or UAE, every country is very unique and every country has pros and cons. But if you look at the Indian corporate landscape, no, that I've not worked in India, obviously the past 2 decades, but my general observation is we sometimes tend to be more traditional and to a certain extent hierarchical, but I wouldn't compare that to Japan, which is slightly even more. But things change. I see things are changing because if you look at the Gen Zs, and I'm even seeing the Gen Alphas now. You compare a Gen Alpha with what we were at that age, and my goodness, I can't even, you don't know what's happening because they are exposed to so much of technology. Then when I grew up, there was no technology. So I see that impact on kids. And then the kind of awareness and the kind of intellectual IP they are getting in, it is amazing. So I see this will also have because these are the future leaders of the Indian corporate industry. They are the future leaders of India. And I am sure there is nothing wrong in being traditional, but it is always important we be a bit unconventional, also have the appetite to take controlled risks and try out new things and the backing. Because and the backing and making sure the right mentoring happens for the next generation to go and explore. And most importantly, I advocate this to anyone who I talk in India, have an entrepreneurial mindset because I say this to when I go to colleges, universities, I tell them, you decide your career, you decide what you want. Whether you go and work in an organization or you want to start your own business, the moment you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you are individualistic in your thought process, you are independent in your thinking. And at any point of time, the moment you are into that mode, you work for any corporates, but you also take care of your professional growth, which means at any point of time, you're self-sustainable. And that is one thing probably coming from very diverse backgrounds, even for me, because when I came from, we all come from a very cultural background, we're very emotionally attached. Where when we say something, we take caution. But me having worked outside, I've also managed teams in UK and other cultures. They are very open. They just express what they think is right. So they don't look at the emotional part at times, and they have to say good or bad. It comes straight on the face. But we are slightly different. So I would say everything is a packaged combination because these are factors which contribute to how the corporate structured and how they are evolving. So for me, the entrepreneurial mindset is one, and I see that because if you look at our government made in India initiatives, I see those kind of initiatives as an tool to instill entrepreneurial mindset in the younger generations. And that's how I see these things coming through. It's very so heartening to see these things coming. And if you look at India, India has come a long way. How many entrepreneurs we have today, and they're making the news. If you look at startups, and I can proudly say, India is widely considered and respected and regarded outside because having spent 2 decades outside of India, I personally, so I see this change happening big time.
So, what are some CSR activities you've handled?
See, for me, I always believe in contributing to society and people around because you've come for a purpose. I've spent 30 years in the industry. I started from somewhere and I've ended up somewhere. But why did I get all these things? What is the purpose? I've always introspected on this. And I was lucky, but why I was lucky? So how can I give it back to society? So I always believe in three things. One is knowledge, where whatever knowledge I've gained, I always go and talk to people and impart that and give it back. And especially the other side is in the pandemic. There's so many. In fact, the world itself was going through tough times, and my obligation was being outside. Obviously, was contributing to the country where I was based on. But beyond that, what can I do for India? Because obviously, India is my home country and which gave me life. And whatever I am today, it's like a mother, right? You can't. You have to. You're obligated. That's your duty. So I always believed in seeing what you can do. So we work with many three aspects. One is on there was a lot of dearth of oxygen concentrators during the pandemic. So we raised money, we raised funds to ship oxygen concentrators to India, and so many families were suffering. And in terms of education, because suddenly the breadwinner is no more, and in fact, many of the cases I don't even know who they are. And the only thing what I've always ensured is my identity is not revealed because the moment your identity is revealed, then you become God, and that's the worst thing that can happen to you. So I always do it through channels where your identity is kept. I'm saying this because you asked me. The identity is masked, and then it reaches the person, and that family is able to at least continue and sustain and move on to the next level. We've worked with a lot of sport cricket academies. In fact, in the UAE, a lot of cricket academy because when you switch indoor, nothing outdoor, the sporting fraternity, the music fraternity. So, because when someone is suffering, you can't categorize based on their profession. And I did it also through I run a mentor sports management firm in the UAE. I do bring cricketers, and we used to conduct sports management clinics, leadership talks. So I worked with Ashwin initially. He was the first one to start with. I brought him to Dubai. Someone who really respect him, and I'm always amazed by the amount of knowledge he possesses and the kind of memory he has. Uh, we worked with Ashwin and Dinesh Karthik, who was also my brand ambassador. So all these people, they all did their part in whatever I had asked for. With Srusan, who plays for CSK, Paddy Upton. Paddy was with the Indian cricket team. I'm just naming a few. So many others were there, but in principle, um, my CSR was anything you can do which can lift uh, anyone in distress. You can create an impact, positive impact, is CSR for me because I don't differentiate in which arts, which domain it is, anything. And even when I've helped people with jobs, I've consciously looked at their social backgrounds. There were people, yeah, some of them whom I've helped. The boy didn't have parents. Only old grandparents were there in a remote village, and some of them mother was working as a maid. Because my principle is if you get a boy or a girl a job in the IT or any space, and their parents are a mother or a driver, at least that generation moves on to the next level. See, that's the impact you create. You can't fix the whole system, but you can be a small drop of water in the ocean, creating that impact. And looking at that, at least someone, that good thing with good aura and energy will go to others as well. So I'm a firm believer in that.
So, as an ESG and corporate governance expert, what values do you bring to the table?
See, in general, ESG is very common because when we talk about environment or social or governance, in today's world, sustainability, environment is the buzzwords today for a fact because we see how the climate is around us. That's a good. We see what's going on or going through because all the places which used to be cooler are becoming warmer. And in fact, we had rains in Dubai. In fact, it's Dubai standard was a drizzle. So you don't expect things, but those things are happening. So why is it happening? If you're conscious of it, because the climate is changing around us, the environment is changing around us. Is it good or bad? When something used to happen the right way and then it changes, so something is not right. So it needs to be fixed. So I would attribute it right from there. One is social consciousness, how obligated and socially committed you are towards the society and the environment. And that is where the environmental part comes in. And I would attribute, I spoke about a lot of people management and for the people. And social is all about how you create a um, very healthy and good work environment, work life balance, teach the right values to people, and fostering good employee culture. Anything which we can infuse more of positivity into people and making sure that's a good environment to live in, a good place to live in. And obviously, when you do all these things, you always need to have a good framework or certain rules which to make sure things are happening the right way. And that's why we need governance. Governance is more about to make sure that things are implemented in the right way to the best possible extent to make sure whatever we want to achieve are achieved and it reaches the right people at the right time. So I give this layman interpretations because I've never talked the corporate angle for ESG generally because for me, if I go and talk about this to a college, I need to talk at this level because this is the grassroots. At the grassroots level, you have to be simplistic, you have to be very normal, and you have to relate it to their daily day-to-day actions in life and infuse that knowledge from there. So that is what and when you collaborate ESG with corporate governance, obviously when you work for an institution, there you have a structure where a company operates, a set of rules, a set of frameworks. So when you integrate ESG and corporate governance, is two things getting integrated to one. So this is the explanation I give in colleges because I don't go and talk about board meetings, board members, because the moment you start from there, because you need to start from the basics, and then you
Mhm.
go and say, okay, then how organizations are structured. You have a board and you have executive, non-executive directors and a CEO, because then you'll be able to relate. People have looked what you discuss at that level, what kind of strategies, what kind of discussions go on, and what is the mindset you should have, and what is the obligation for the board towards the organization and towards the community around us. That is where the environmental part, sustainability part comes in, and how they bring in their knowledge. So, for example, if I come from the BFSI and I'm also into sports, but suddenly if I have to get into a non-executive role in a music industry, I can still contribute because I come with a diversified experience and I can bring in a different flavor, which will be very unconventional. And because I'm also venturing now, because my daughter is a sports psychologist and my son is into sports analytics. They're both the twins. So when I was talking to my college, we spoke about mindfulness through music. how you can infuse, because she also sings. She's also a musician. So you're talking about this, and I said probably this is one thing where we can educate how we can bring the society consciousness and how we can be environmentally sustainable in defining new models in the musical space, because very unconventional. In fact, she told me up to no one is. I don't think we have something like this. That's where I say if you can always say there is nothing something like this, or you test and try. If it works, it works, or you'll take some learnings from there and move on to the next level. Because that's how concepts evolve, and these things doesn't get decided in a day or a year or a week. It takes time, but you need to infuse, put the seed, grow the thought process, keep thinking on it. One point of time, it may be very relevant things happening around. So I'm just giving this example because that's where I tell people where you start, what are the basic definitions, and then you look at the corporate culture, then how the board functions, and then give the end-to-end view. They will at least have an idea. Okay, that is where I need to set my vision on. If I'm talking to someone who's just finishing college.
So, what are some changes you expect to see with the advent of IoT, AI, ML, blockchain, cloud, digital twin, big data, and Web 3.0 in your field or the corporate field?
See, technology is common across any domain because it is more relevant to the kind of businesses they are going to be used in. But if you look at technology 30 years back, it was a different landscape. You had the mainframes, and then you had different technology development stacks, .NET, Java, and then now you're talking about Python. And then on one side, you're talking about the Internet of Things, blockchain. Technology will evolve as the human race evolves. And I say this because nothing is static. Did When I spoke about my journey 30 years back, we never had a mobile phone. We used to do trunk call and put a result, book a call through a landline, then speak. Did we imagine that we'll be having a mobile and today we'll be playing games on that, or probably watching World Cup match on it, or whatever that? We have so many. We're spoiled for choices today. It's an Apple or an Android. You look at Android, there's so many brands. You're spoiled for choices. So I always say this: too much of sweet is poison. So even technology should be approached like that, because we talk about Gen AI today. Because there's so many things which are being spoken today, but this is going to evolve. But organizations should embrace this and see how they can use it to advance their businesses strategies and make it more relevant to their objectives, their goals, their customers, their shareholders, their partners, and with a commitment to the society. So if you look at the internet, if you look at we had sensors coming in. We had sensors putting in corporates where it will automatically say how long you're using the air conditioners in a day, and pretty much it gives you a summarized report of the carbon emissions. I'm just giving you an example. So that's a very positive thing because now every organization has social obligations. Even the regulators have started tracking it.
Yeah.
So it is becoming more formalized, which means you need to embrace, adopt, and use the technology in the right way and make sure that you give credible data to back that up. Because it's not just saying, I've done this, you have to demonstrate. So, how do you do that then? That's where the technology comes and plays a big role. And if you look at blockchain, obviously it plays a bigger role in the transaction processing space. But we live in a world there is always good and bad. Today, cybersecurity is the most spoken topic. Why? Because data is the key. Why is data is the key? Because it relates to people. Why it relates? Because it relates to people's information. We say PII, personal identifiable information. Because the moment information gets hacked, someone's data is being stolen by someone. So every company needs to protect their broader borders. So cybersecurity, they need to make sure the gates are well monitored, well controlled, and they have a 24 by 7 cyber fusion team monitoring it. Big companies have bigger problems. Small companies have problems of their magnitude. But the problem is the same. The magnitude differs. So there, when good things come, there will always be side effects. It's like the medication. So I always tell people when you adopt something, be more practical, be more agnostic to what you're getting into, and probably what all you should anticipate. And being having been a CI, I always say I can vouch for this for the knowns. In fact, many of the board meetings I've attended, they'll go, how secure we are. I've been asked this question. I always say this, I can say we are secure till this point of time because we know we have covered ourselves for the knowns to a larger extent. The unknowns are still there because anytime any organization may get hacked and anything could happen. Either you may prevent it or it may result in something. But that's not something you can say 100% sure I'm 100% safe. That's not the world we live in, but we need to accept that. But we need to do our best. I always say this, at this point of time, we are safe, but we are monitoring, we are on the toes. We're trying to keep ourselves protected at all times. And we have a good, when something happens, we know how to react, when to react, and how to approach. So we have good processes in place. We have anticipated the worst case scenarios to best possible extent, then we go after it. So that's how, if you look at technology, any domain, this is how it works. Anything which comes will come with the pros and cons. I would always advocate this to my fellow CEOs. See what relates to your domain, how sensitive is your processing, how much of your interaction with the customer happens. If you're a bank, it's very sensitive because you deal with customers on a daily basis. If you're an insurance company, you still deal with customers. So it depends on the domain you operate in and the kind of interaction you have with the stakeholders and how much of data is being used and how much of data is being transmitted to external parties, third parties back and forth. So that's where the architectural landscape also comes into picture. So any new technology, whether it's blockchain, machine learning, AI, these are all technologies that are there to stay. They will have a big improvement on the operational enhancement. Good, and because today many companies struggle with data governance because you have something called unstructured and structured data. So because you can't fix everything at the same time. So I think these are the areas which hopefully these kind of new age, new gen technologies will help us to address in the future.
So we're building a community here of industry magnates. The move is meant for cross-pollination of knowledge and building a knowledge-sharing community of corporate giants and industry experts. What are your thoughts about this initiative taken by Mr. Zishan Pathan, Mr. Heval Mehta, and the whole World Development Corporation team?
Firstly, I want to thank Mrs. Zishan and Heval Mehta and the World Development Corporation because uh, getting all industry experts together is not an ordinary job. To be honest, everyone are coming from very diverse backgrounds, very rich experience, and getting everyone under one roof, and then making them collaborate, bringing that knowledge sharing, and putting it in such a way it is very productive to the next generation, to the external community, is a commendable job. That's what I would say. Beyond that, because I know bringing two people together is not an easy job. So when you manage people, you understand this. So when you have industry veterans and people who've been in the industry for decades coming together, that's not an easy job. I mean, maybe sound easy on paper, but it requires a lot of energy and a lot of patience, maturity, understanding, and bringing everyone on the same page, and then teaching something. Even running through the courses or telling them this could be done better has to be said in the right manner at the right time because there could be egos at play as well at times. I'm just being very candid here because uh, I'm just bringing out the complexity and I'm amazed by it. And to be honest, that's what sparked me. Wow, what an initiative! It really requires a good thought process, and someone who's committing themselves into this cause only can do this, and that's not an easy job. So I would commend the entire team, Mr. Zishan, Mr. Hevel, for championing this wonderful initiative, and this is going to cause a lot of good impact on the society, on the corporate landscape, and this is definitely is going to help India as a country move forward.
Great, sir. It was fantastic conversing with you, and I'm confident that your insights will truly inspire future leaders. Thank you so much once again for joining us today, sir, and wish you the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you, Tanay. It's a pleasure talking to you. Good luck.
Same here. Have a great day ahead. Bye.
Jungle.